Well, hello there, and welcome to day 14 of A Film a Day with me, Jordan Woodley. Gosh, I'm tired, so I'm going to make this a very brief one, I think. But today I looked at the Meyerowitz Stories, new and selected, as part of the list given to me by Robert Barrett. So this film stars Adam Sandler, Ben Stiller, Dustin Hoffman, Elizabeth Marvel, Emma Thompson. It's very. You see a cast like that and you think comedy. It's a comedy drama, or as some people would just call it, a drama. So it's directed and written by Noah Baumbach, who, when I saw the name, rang a bell, and so when I looked him up afterwards, of course, went on to do Marriage Story. And once I'd seen that, it really clicked in for me. Because all of a sudden I'm like, that sense of character, the dialogue, the framing of shots does... You can see how a film like this really bleeds into a film like Marriage Story. Possibly, I sort of snidely say, with drama with comedy elements, but, if you sort of polish off the corners of the Meyerowitz Stories, sort of take the slight comedic, setups and edge off of it, you do really get a Marriage Story type narrative. But yeah, it's a very cut and dry family drama following three siblings, Danny, I forgot the name of this. Jean and Matthew, and essentially their relationship with their father, the sort of patriarch of their family, Harold, who's a sculptor and a professor and a retiree, and it really examines what you might call passive-aggressive toxic masculinity. The idea of this guy who's not particularly, threatening or overpowering in any particular way, but just has this way about him that, sort of makes his children feel underappreciated or crushed or, unsuccessful in their own lives, even though one is a very loving father, another is a very successful businessman, and the daughter is sort of this generally caring and rounded person. The one thing I would say about the film is the fact that, like with Marriage Story, I think Noah Baumbach leans towards the fact that he is a man, a straight white man, as far as I know, and so therefore the narrative, even though it does give a fair shake to its female characters, including Adam Sandler, or Danny, his character's daughter, who gets quite a prominent role, and the sister Jean, it does lean more towards sort of the male perspective on it. And I said the same about Marriage Story. Even though Marriage Story, I think, tries its best to be really even-handed at looking at relationships, I think it leans more, you draw from what you know, and I felt both in Marriage Story and then in this, that it slants more towards giving a voice to the male characters in it, particularly Adam Sandler and Ben Stiller. But again, it doesn't do the female characters, any injustice. It just I just got that slight tilting of the dice, as it were. But I do think it's a very well put together drama. It really engages you in character. There's something very relatable about it in sort of the construction of dialogue, the way that people talk at each other and are constantly talking over each other in a way that, when I was talking last week about deconstructing Harry, there's this constant sense of dialogue and, quick, witty, back and forths. But I think we're now transitioning to that point where we're not even to the point where sort of dialogue, if you line it up, is still in a Woody Allen film, still reads as if people are talking and then other people are responding, even though its speed would make you think otherwise. Whereas I think with like Noah Baumbach and others, I'm particularly thinking of Uncut Gems, which of course has the Adam Sandler link. There's this sense where characters are constantly talking over each other, and a character will be talking and not responding to the person they're talking to, almost as if they're having a conversation at someone rather than with them. And yeah, some people, that would lose some people, because it's very annoying to watch people not listen to each other and talk over each other. At one point, there's an argument between Dustin Hoffman and his son, I think it's the Ben Stiller son, and there's a point where they're both, it's not even they're arguing, they are simply talking at each other at the same time, neither of whom are listening. And I think, yes, some people would find that quite annoying, but if you sort of strip away what they're saying and the subtext of it and the idea of, families who don't listen, it's really, again, it's another film that cuts to the heart of that kind of narrative. The other thing about it that I've noticed, and it's a habit that I seem to have developed in my film watching, a pattern, is it must be the 4th or 5th film of this series that has been set in New York, and really seems to sort of place New York as a identity in the forefront. And I don't know if that was intentional or whether that was I don't know, whether it was some kind of serendipity, like it's just, I don't know, so many films seem to have this sort of New York character to them, and it's not a bad thing, but I realise that I'd quite like to look at other locations, so hopefully I'll try and move away from the New York-centric narratives. The last thing that I wanted to say about it is a really interesting bit of trivia, and it's to do with the culture of the cinema, which is, this was the second Netflix release along with Okja, which essentially got brought to the Palme d'Or, was nominated for the Palme d'Or at Cannes, which caused the president of Cannes at the time to essentially try to dismiss Netflix films, saying that films that should be acknowledged should be films that were made for the big screen. And this is an ongoing battle over the last couple of years about the sort of validity of streamed films compared to cinematically released films. After the Meyerowitz Stories, Cannes essentially, and French law apparently, restructured the law so that if a film has been streamed, a film that can be considered for the Palme d'Or cannot have been streamed within 36 months of being shown theatrically, basically nullifying any film that's like a Netflix film or an Amazon film. I don't think that's a good call. I think, well, now, particularly in the current situation we're in, that feels reductive, but particularly prior to the current crisis, we're now in a culture where streaming films is becoming a norm, and some incredibly important filmmaking is being done for Netflix, Amazon, HBO, Disney, etc. And so the idea that Cannes once more does something that feels very antiquated and very counterproductive is not surprising, but also out of touch. Those are my thoughts on that anyway. But yes, an excellent film. Thank you for joining me, and I'll see you again tomorrow.